The story opens in 1987 New York City, introducing us to Patrick Bateman, a wealthy young man. We find him amidst a group of affluent friends, engaged in shallow, materialistic banter. Patrick, a finance banker, finds himself utterly bored by their vapid conversations. Seeking an escape, he leaves his companions and heads to a nightclub. There, a bartender's request for cash instead of a card ignites a disproportionate rage within him, leading him to threaten her life over the seemingly trivial matter. His obsession with designer suits and expensive accessories underscores Patrick's superficial nature, a man seemingly defined by his outward appearance and taste in music, perhaps lacking any deeper substance. Later that evening, Patrick is out for dinner with his fiancée, Evelyn, joined by a group of their acquaintances. He displays a marked disinterest in Evelyn, his detachment palpable. This indifference, coupled with a later, implied act of violence against an unnamed woman, paints a disturbing picture of his emotional detachment. Following this disturbing incident, Patrick invites Evelyn's friend, Courtney, to dinner. Initially, she declines, but changes her mind when he mentions the prestigious Moon restaurant, highlighting his desire to impress and show off. The next day, Patrick boasts to his colleagues about his dinner at the Moon restaurant the previous night. At that moment, Paul Allen, a business associate, enters the scene. Paul mistakenly addresses Patrick as Marcus, confusing him with another employee who shares a similar penchant for suits and works at the same firm. This confusion arises from the homogeneous appearance of the company's employees, all sporting suits and clean-shaven faces. Paul then mentions his own upcoming Friday dinner reservation at the Moon restaurant, sparking visible jealousy and anger in Patrick. Paul proceeds to flaunt his business card, prompting a round of competitive card comparisons among the group, each trying to one-up the other in a display of superficial one-upmanship. Patrick, fixated on Paul's superior business card, seethes with envy. Later that evening, Patrick follows his usual routine of venturing into a desolate alley. He encounters a homeless black man asking for help, but instead of offering assistance, Patrick insults him and, brandishing a knife from his bag, murders him in cold blood. This chilling act reveals Patrick's psychopathic tendencies, his inability to control his rage, and his disturbing inclination towards violence. Sometime later, Patrick and Paul are having dinner together. Paul, still mistaking Patrick for Marcus, unwittingly provides Patrick with an opportunity. Patrick plies Paul with excessive amounts of alcohol and subtly probes him with questions. Exploiting Paul's mistaken identity, Patrick encourages him to criticize Patrick, leading Paul to make disparaging remarks about him and suggest that Evelyn should leave him. Patrick listens calmly, masking his simmering rage. He then invites the inebriated Paul back to his apartment. A crucial detail here is the presence of newspapers strategically spread across the floor, a detail Paul fails to notice in his drunken state. Patrick puts on some music and disappears into the other room. Returning wearing a transparent raincoat, he engages Paul in a conversation that further reveals his disturbed psyche. He then retrieves an axe from his bedroom and brutally attacks Paul, resulting in a shocking and iconic scene of the film. Paul is killed instantly, and Patrick disposes of the body. Patrick then collects some of Paul's belongings, including his keys and clothes, and leaves a voice recording mimicking Paul's voice, announcing a trip to London for a few weeks. The next morning, Patrick sits in his office, listening to music, seemingly relaxed. Detective Campbell enters his cabin. Legendary actor Willem Dafoe, renowned for his portrayal of the Green Goblin in Spider-Man, takes on the role of Detective Kimball, the investigator assigned to Paul Allen's disappearance. Kimball subjects Patrick to a series of pointed questions, momentarily unsettling him. For a fleeting instant, Patrick fears his carefully constructed facade is about to crumble. Later that night, Patrick brings two prostitutes, Christy and Sabrina, back to his apartment. He engages them in mundane, tedious conversation, leaving the women utterly bored. The film's dark undertones resurface as Patrick's extreme narcissism takes center stage. While with them, he fixates on his own reflection, consumed by vanity, as if he alone possesses any worth. As dawn approaches and the women prepare to leave, Patrick's mask slips completely. He subjects them to brutal physical torture before dismissing them with a wad of cash. The following day at the office, Patrick's colleague, Luis, proudly displays his new business card. The sight of it ignites a familiar rage within Patrick. He lures Luis into the bathroom and attempts to strangle him. However, Luis, mentally unstable, misinterprets Patrick's aggression as a romantic advance and clings to him. Repulsed and alarmed, Patrick flees. A few days later, Detective Kimball returns to Patrick's office, this time with more direct questions about Paul's disappearance, specifically Patrick's whereabouts on the night in question. Patrick attempts to evade the inquiry, but Kimball reveals he has already confirmed Patrick's presence at a party that night. Kimball, seemingly satisfied, concludes that Paul has likely gone to London. As previously established, the uniformity of appearance among the men, the identical suits, hairstyles, and clean-shaven faces, likely contributes to Kimball's confusion. One evening, Patrick is at a nightclub with his friends when he encounters a supermodel who agrees to accompany him home. In the next scene, we glimpse a lock of the model's hair in Patrick's hand, implying yet another act of violence. Shortly after, Patrick's secretary, Jean, enters his office, reminding him of upcoming meetings. Still reeling from his latest act and aware of Jean's affection for him, Patrick invites her to dinner. Jean agrees on the condition that he secures a reservation at the coveted Moon restaurant. Patrick immediately calls, but the manager laughs him off, stating that there's no availability. Undeterred, Patrick lies to Jean, claiming to have secured a table. His true intentions, however, are far more sinister. That evening, Jean arrives at Patrick's apartment. She's the first woman who seems genuinely interested in what he has to say. But in a chilling turn, Patrick produces a nail gun and points it at her head. Just as his plan seems to be unfolding, Jean intercepts a voicemail from Evelyn, discovering Patrick's engagement. Deeply hurt, she recoils. For the first time, a flicker of compassion crosses Patrick's face. He shouts at Jean to leave immediately, fearing for her safety. Terrified, Jean flees without a word, but the darkness within Patrick remains. His next target is Christy, the prostitute. He approaches her again, proposing another encounter. Christy initially refuses, traumatized by their previous experience. However, when Patrick flashes a roll of cash, greed overcomes her fear, and she agrees. After their encounter, Christy seizes an opportunity to escape. Sensing Patrick's impending violence, she makes a run for it but mistakenly opens the wrong door, and the sight that greets her is horrifying. Inside, a gruesome scene awaited. A room filled with corpses, a tableau straight out of a horror film. Christy screams and flees, but Patrick, chainsaw in hand, gives chase. She seeks refuge in the bathroom, only to discover another body, the model he'd brought home earlier, now lifeless. Desperate, Christy races down the building stairs, pursued by the relentless Patrick and his whirring chainsaw. As she descends, Patrick hurls the chainsaw from above, the blade cleaving through her body. The following morning, Patrick meets with Evelyn and finally expresses his true feelings. He confesses his inability to continue their relationship and his desire to break up. Evelyn is heartbroken, but Patrick leaves without a word. Later that day, he attempts to withdraw money from an ATM, only to be met with an error message. Suddenly, bystanders begin screaming, and police officers converge on him. Patrick runs, but the police pursue relentlessly. A shootout ensues, and a shot fired by Patrick hits a police car, triggering a massive explosion that kills the officers. Patrick is momentarily stunned by the sheer force of the blast, questioning how a single bullet could cause such devastation. Shaken but determined to escape, he continues his rampage, shooting anyone who crosses his path, eliminating any potential witnesses. The next morning, an eerie calm descends. Patrick goes through his usual morning routine as if nothing has happened. He arrives at Paul Allen's apartment intending to erase any evidence, but upon entering, he's met with a sight that sends chills down his spine. Paul Allen's house was clean, with no signs of the bodies or the blood that had been spilled. It seemed as if everything had been freshly painted, and the real estate agent, upon encountering him and realizing he wasn't a customer, quickly asked him to leave. Meanwhile, Jane's curiosity led her to take a look at Patrick's notebook, and to her great surprise, she saw some terrifying things. She finds his diary filled with disturbing, violent drawings, mutilated bodies, blood, and scenes of torture. It's as if his darkest fantasies have been documented. Later, he confesses his crimes to his lawyer, Harold Carnes, but Carnes dismisses his confession as a joke, mistaking Patrick's detailed recounting of the murders for morbid humor. Despite Patrick's increasingly frantic attempts to convince him of the truth, Carnes remains unconvinced, attributing the story to stress or delusion. Patrick begins to question his sanity. Has he lost his mind, or is the world simply choosing to ignore him? He retreats to a corner, grappling with the implications. He has committed brutal killings, yet no one seems to care. A strange sense of peace washes over him as he realizes that his life will likely continue as before, without consequence. He rejoins his friends, partying as if nothing has transpired. The film ends here, leaving a lingering question. Did Patrick actually commit these atrocities, or were they merely a figment of his imagination? The ambiguity leaves the audience to ponder the true nature of Patrick's reality.